Good morning and welcome to the Southern Ohio Farm Show. I'm Brooke Beam, the Highland County Extension Educator for Agriculture, Natural Resources, and Community Development. As you can see, we're enjoying some very wonderful spring weather, and this weather is allowing our farmers to really start to plant their fields and get a lot of their preparation work finished. So as you're out and enjoying the weather, please give our farmers extra room on the road to make wide turns and allow them more space to make stops and make the moves they need to get to their fields so they can continue working this spring. On this week's episode of the Southern Ohio Farm Show, we have a new recipe and more information from Gigi Neal on growing potatoes here in Ohio.
Welcome to the Southern Ohio Farm Show. This is Gigi Neal of OSU Extension in Claremont County, Agricultural and Natural Resources Educator.
I'm James Morris, the Agricultural and Natural Resources and Community Development Educator for the Ohio State University Extension in Brown County.
Hello, my name is Richard Purdon. I'm with the Ohio State University Extension. I am the Ag and Natural Resource Educator for Adams County and the Community Development Educator for Adams County, Ohio.
And I'm Brooke Beam, the Ohio State University Extension Educator for Agriculture, Natural Resources, and Community Development in Highland County. And we will be your hosts for the Southern Ohio Farm Show.
Hi, I'm Pat Brinkman with Ohio State University Extension in Fayette County. And welcome to this little tip. We're going to do apple nachos today. And apple nachos are easy, quick, fruit treat or dessert, and any age. And you're going to decide what toppings you can add to them. So you get to treat them. We're going to take, I've washed my apples and my hands. And so we're going to take an apple, and the easiest way I think is to use an apple core and cutter and just press down there. Then my apples can cut it in pieces. And move the core so that way we don't have to worry about the core. We're going to throw that core away. I like to cut these pieces then in half because that way you get a little bit more goodies on your apples when you do them. So I cut them in half. And apples are very nutritious. We all know that because we always heard the saying, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. But it's a quick and easy dessert. And if your house is like my house, we usually have apples around. So it makes it quick and easy to have a treat and easy to make. So on this apple, then we're going to you can put some dried cranberries. If you like dried cranberries, you can put some raisins if you like raisins. You can use peanut butter, and if your peanut butter isn't quite runny enough, you can put it in the microwave for a few minutes, and then it'll kind of get a more liquidy just for a few seconds. Put it in the microwave, and then you can spread it around a little bit easier on your apple slices here, so that you've got a little bit more. And if you don't care for peanut butter, then you can use almond butter or one of the other butters. But that way you do have options. My one granddaughter loves peanut butter, the one doesn't. So we do almond butter on one, peanut butter on another one. And then we're going to add some sunflower seeds. You don't have to add any of these other ingredients. You can take and pick your own. You can also add some almonds, sliced almonds or slivered almonds. One of the favorites with everybody I know is to add some mini chocolate chips on top because that always makes it really good. We just love the chocolate. And then if you're a real adventurous, you can add a little bit of caramel sauce drizzled on top because that always makes apples good. We all love caramel sauce. And you can also add a dash of cinnamon if you want. So easy to do, quick, always seem to have the ingredients on hand. So have fun, eat up apple nachos. Enjoy.
Next, we have Gigi Neal with more information on how to grow potatoes. And Gigi, what can you tell us to help make our potato crop a success this year?
I jumped ahead of myself here. Keep hilling and watering as we go. And then once the green shoots emerge, hill soil, continue to hill it up as it grows. So here's an example. As we planted the root system down here, and then what I was talking about with the flourish on top, and then the potatoes branching out from each one of the different tubers that is growing from that stem system. So that's why we need to make sure we keep dragging that soil up, because as the plant grows taller, then more potatoes potentially could be growing underground. Now, if we wanted to grow a potato in a bucket, you can do that. You can take, I've even seen where people take old tires and stack them up. And they put a layer of soil in the bottom, and then you put your potato in the second tire, and then you just keep adding to it and stacking them up and adding more soil as the plant grows. Same thing with your container potatoes. So you want to put a little bit of soil in the bottom. Then you want to put your seed potatoes in a 14-inch pot. And I'm using that because that's what this diagram is based off of, is a 14-inch diameter pot. And you can put roughly 4 seed potatoes in there. So it's crowded, but you can make it work. So you want to put 2 to 3 or 3 to 4 potatoes in there, or as many, no more than that. But if you only put 1 in there, you can do that too. And you put a little layer of soil in, put your seed potato in, and then cover it up with that 3 inches. Then as you see it growing in the second picture, you just keep adding more soil until it eventually is growing out of the pot. And then the nice thing is when we go to harvest with the container, all you have to do is dump it out. Whereas we'll talk about how to harvest potatoes here in just a minute for the row. Some things we need to talk about though, and I'm not going to get into detail about this, but your insects, most common ones are going to be the fleet beetle, the Colorado potato beetle, aphids, wireworm, and leaf hoppers. With insects, they're going to happen. And when you see them, you need to take control of them. It's best to, and even with our other diseases we're going to talk about in a second, prevention is the best method for any of them. Once you see the insect, it's more difficult to get rid of. But if you prevent it ahead of time, then it's easier to control. Diseases, though, when we're talking about fungus, once a plant gets a type of fungus, it's very, very difficult to get rid of it. So once again, prevention is the best medicine. So you want to prevent it. And there are some times when our plants get fungal type diseases or soil-borne diseases, and there's nothing we can do for it. Once they've got it, they've got it. So preventing it, making sure that you've got the right environment, you've got the right airflow, and you have used neem oils and sulfurs and things like that to help control those diseases ahead of time, and you are preventing them from getting those types of funguses. You have also chosen the right soil. You have rotated your crops, because you want to rotate your crop families for the best prevention of diseases and insects also. So making sure you're doing crop rotation, and yes, vegetable crops have to be rotated. You can't plant the same thing in the same spot of your garden every single year. If you're using a container, you don't want to use the same container each year for the same crop either. You want to clean those out. You want to sanitize them. You want to use a different type of soil. I had a local garden center. They have been growing tomato plants they've been in this garden center business for 50 years. Why I had to tell them this, I don't know last year, but I said, you have a soil-borne disease in your potted tomatoes. It wasn't their seed pot tomato, the 6-packs. It was the ones they were potting and growing for customers to come by. Those were the ones that were dying off. I said, did you use the same soil last year? Yeah. I said, well, give me the root systems. Let's send it off. They had a nematode in their soil. And after I sent it off to the lab, I said, quit using that to grow your tomatoes in. But keep in mind that plant families, tomatoes and peppers and eggplant, are the same Solanaceae family. So you got to make sure you're rotating the family, not just the type of plant. So ready to harvest. When they are yellow and dying at the top of the greening of the plant. So the plant, the foliage has decided that it's, I'm done growing and it's time for my product to come to surface. So the yellowing dies back. The skin, if you were to reach down in and check one of your potatoes, is going to be firm and it doesn't rub off easily. What we call a new potato are dug up early and that skin has not thickened on them. So that's why the skin on a new potato rubs off real easy. So you want to harvest your potatoes by going down about 10 to 12 inches and distance from the plant. So height and width of the row that you have there, and digging that out. You can use a spade, you can use a shovel, you can use there's a potato fork, and get down in there and dig those out. And then you're going to pull them from the vine. So that's where I was saying the nice thing about containers is that you can just tip it over and there's your potatoes. Once you have got your potatoes, you want to make sure that they are dry. You can store them for a very long time, but you want to store them in a location that has plenty of air movement. So you want to keep it wants to be at that low moisture and dry and dark. We don't want them to stay in a bright lit location. The other thing is that you've probably heard the old rule of thumb that you don't want to put your potatoes and your onions together because they actually cause each other to ripen much faster. The onions produce a gas that causes potatoes to ripen faster and rot quicker. So keep them in a cool, dry location. And you can usually keep them for roughly 95 to 110 days. So, and if you've got the old food cellars that are even a lot of times underground almost, you can keep them in there for even longer. So I'm going to click here and hope this shows the way it's supposed to. And this is a video from Texas AgriLife talking about the rainbow of potatoes.
Phoebe, right now I'm seeing that the window has popped up, but I don't see the window. It's that gray
Okay.
overlay. So you might have to reshare with the YouTube video.
Now do you see it?
Varieties
Yes.
that are adapted specifically to Texas environmental conditions. However, some of our varieties are widely adapted across the U.S. In fact, 3 of them now collectively represent the 5th largest number of acres that are certified for seed in the U.S. So we've released some successful varieties and we're developing more all the time. We're always interested in new and improved red varieties and improved russet varieties, but there are some other types that have become more interesting lately. For one is small potatoes, such as you see right here. There's a company called Tasteful Selections that we're working with and developing improved varieties of potatoes that have heavy set of small potatoes. One of the reasons for the popularity of this is, but with both spouses working, the amount of time required to prepare potatoes becomes an issue with some people. With the small potatoes, they can be microwaved very fast and be on the table in a hurry. In addition, they're quite tasty as well. So it's not only the smalls. We're looking at reds with yellow flesh and white flesh with purples and different colors. In addition, potato consumption in the U.S. has generally declined somewhat, and that's been from the traditional potatoes. And what we're doing now is developing unique varieties, such as you see appearing here, that appeal to people. They have a tendency to appeal to the younger set that is high income, that are willing to try something different. And this has contributed to somewhat of an increase in consumption of this type over the russets. The russets are still the standard, and as are the reds. But these specialty potatoes, this particular one has the red flesh with splashes of yellow, and it's yellow fleshed as well. So specialty, these are referred to as sometimes as gourmet or specialty potatoes, and that's receiving more and more emphasis. We're going to be releasing a new russet variety here this year that looks to be very successful. With the tubers that I'm displaying here are different selections that we've made, and these two in this hand are yellow fleshed, and they have compounds contained in them that are health producing, antioxidants. So in addition to having a unique appearance, which some of the young millenniums seem to like, they also are healthier potatoes to eat. Potatoes are a real important delivery system for important nutrients, human nutrients, because the potatoes are consumed 113 pounds per capita in the U.S. So if we can make the potato more healthy, we can help to make the population healthier. This is a purple flesh, as you can see, and purple skin with yellow flesh, and that appeals to some people as well. So in this case, we have a red skin with a yellow flesh. So the different varieties have expanded the potato consumption in that area, and helps to compensate for the decrease in consumption of the russet type potatoes.
Welcome everybody to our virtual Day in the Woods program on native trees and shrubs for wildlife. And
Well,
we'll move on from there.
now I've got another video going.
Wonderful. Thank you.
We're on our way back to
There you go.
PowerPoint, it looks like.
Yeah.
Although Dave Apsley's videos are wonderful and everyone should check those out as well.
Okay, so one thing I forgot to tell you while I'm actually bringing this back up here, is I forgot to tell you how far apart to space your seeds. So when you space your seed potatoes out, and I remember doing this as a kid, I mean, at that point in time, I probably did it with, I had to go 2 feet is what Dad would tell me to do because my feet were smaller. But roughly 10 to 12 inches apart is where you want to plant the seeds. So I did mention earlier to make sure that the eyes are pointing towards the sun, but I forgot to tell you how far apart to put them. So basically, it's 10 to 12 inches. I actually got a ruler down and measured my foot. of what it is. So my foot now is roughly 10 inches. So every step that I would take, I'd put it right in front of my toe and be at that 10 to 12 inch mark. So depending on how big your foot is, depends on how far apart you could use that as a measurement. So that is what I have in, oh, I went too far. The gentleman from Texas AgriLife was talking about nutrition with our potatoes, and potatoes are one of the most versatile food products that we can have, and they are very nutritious. What makes them not nutritious is everything that we add to them. So if we could eat our potatoes with just a potato, just as it is, I mean, and using them in smaller portions. So when we're talking about eating a potato that is nutritious, we're talking about eating roughly a 5-ounce potato. So the one the size of your fist. But think about the ones we normally get when you go to the store or when you go out to dinner. They're either twice that size or sometimes even bigger. They're huge. So making sure you're just doing it in the right portion control, keeping it in a small portion and not adding all those extra things to it. So when I fry my potatoes, and yes, I did fry some up this morning, but I fry them in lard and I fried them with an onion and it's put a little bit of, I use steak seasoning on mine, or you can use salt and pepper. And that's all I'll put on it. I won't put sour cream. I won't put cheese. I won't put all that stuff on it. Just eat it the way it is. Frying them in butter is better than cooking them in margarine. So it's that deep fry aspect. So that French fry grease, the hash browns, when it's made into those products, that's a lot of times when we ruin the nutritional factor of our potatoes. So now we should have time for questions and sharing of recipes. So I'm going to stop sharing and come back to you guys so I can see you.
Thank you, Gigi. Yeah, this is a great time now. If you have questions, you can put them in the chat or you can unmute and ask. And if you have a favorite potato recipe, feel free to share as well. I also have a poll that I'm going to launch, and I'd love to see your feedback on this poll. I'll do that here in a little bit. Bill has already put a question in the chat. Is it okay to eat raw potatoes?
Yeah, you can eat raw potatoes. I don't think they're as flavorful, but you can. It's no different than eating a raw carrot or anything like that.
I have just launched the poll for our audience. I'd like to gather your feedback here so we know the experience level of our audience and how we might be able to help you into the future as you're looking for additional resources or planning programs in the future. Karen asks, how many seed pieces should be planted in each hill?
So you put one seed piece, and then that's what I was saying. You plant your one seed piece and then go 10 to 12 inches and plant another one. So if you've got a 100-foot row, is what we were talking about earlier, you're going to have, and we needed roughly 15 pounds to make that 100-foot row. So you start at your beginning, and then every foot you're going to put a seed potato. So then 100-foot row every 10 inches. I'm not doing the math quickly this morning, sorry. One seed every 10 to 12 inches. And I don't know if you guys fixed breakfast this morning, but I did. Got my fried taters waiting for me for when I'm finished.
I was going to say one of my favorite ways to cook potatoes is to use red potatoes and do potatoes O'Brien, which is what we always called it. I used to work in a bakery at a grocery store where we'd do hot dishes for lunch, and potatoes O'Brien was always a favorite. It was just red potatoes with peppers, onions, and some type of a smoked sausage, kielbasa, cut into chunks and all just fried in the same pan. Made a nice little sauce with the the water from the peppers, add a little bit of butter to it to keep it from sticking to the pan. And that was always popular and just so easy. I also like to do that with leftover ham. But I do have to add a little extra moisture to the pan, but we really like potatoes O'Brien.
Can you plant the
Dwayne?
peelings under
Yeah.
lawn grass? Neighbor always did that and had great luck. You talking about the peelings from your food grade potatoes or ones from seed potatoes? Because the peelings from your food grade potatoes, I mean, yes, you might get plants from it, but they're probably not going to be as strong and sturdy of plants. But your ones from your food grade, and the fact that it's the skin, I think is going to, I mean, great for him that he had good luck, but I'm just thinking that you need that, you got to have that golf ball size. You got to have some meat, so to speak, to your seed potato to be able to have, because that's allowing some nutrients for that plant to go ahead and kickstart and get going, and then it's drawing from the nutrient of itself before it gets its root system out into the soil to be able to pull nutrients from there.
We have another question about composting. Can you
Mhm.
compost potato peelings?
Yes. Yes, you can use potato peelings in your compost. Just as long as it doesn't have all that butter and grease on them, because you don't want to put that into your compost pile.
I hope that you could get the gist from the poll. That we hope that you learned something really helpful today. And if you have questions about growing your potatoes in the garden this year, we hope you'll contact us at Extension. We'd love to help you, whether that's with scouting for diseases or pests, or making sure your area is prepped right. If you run into an issue, we're here to help, and this is our job, is to help you, not to sell you plants or other garden products or pesticides or herbicides. We genuinely want you to get a good potato harvest. No other underlying motives here. So feel free to contact us. Everything that we give you advice on will be research based. And so there's absolutely nothing wrong with consulting the garden center or your friends or neighbors, or even giving Google a try, but we hope that you'll use us as a resource as well to make sure the information you're gathering is accurate and locally applicable too.
And what I'll do, Christine, because I didn't get my works cited page on there, but I will update that and then send you the PowerPoint, and then you can send it out to the group so that they have it with that list of resources. But I did get my information from Texas AgriLife, which is their extension resource, Minnesota, North Dakota State University, and some from North Carolina, and of course, a little bit from Ohio too, from OSU.
Thank you. We have a couple of more questions that came in, Gigi. We did answer Karen's first question about how many potatoes to put in the hill. Karen then also asked, what fungicide do you recommend to treat seed pieces?
So the fungicide to treat the seed pieces, you really don't want to use any true fungicide at that point. You can use just that bleach mix to help sanitize it. So it's like a 1 to 10. You can either spray it or dip them quickly, but then lay them out to dry. So yeah, 1 seed piece per hill. But remember, your hill could be 10 foot long. So within that 10-foot length, you're going to plant 1 seed, go 10 inches further down, plant another one, 10 inches further down and plant another one. In a container, though, you could plant them a little closer together. So as I said, in a 14-inch container, you only want to put a maximum of 4. Of course, the bigger your container, you could put more. Like somebody mentioned a garbage can.
I see Dwayne says here in the chat that he quit growing potatoes because of potato beetles. He had a hard time controlling them. What's everybody else's experiences this far with potatoes? I personally haven't really grown potatoes at home just because knowing that my soil's conditions were not really conducive for tubers to thrive, I've just avoided them and just bought them. You know, potatoes aren't very expensive. They're usually good quality, and we do have local farmers market vendors who will sell potatoes. So we've had the ability to choose from multiple sources that were easier than growing them at home, just because of that soil texture issue is a limiting factor at our house.
It's a limiting factor here too. I think we have about the same Appalachian lovely soil.
Yeah, and then Phil says the soil is too hard later in the season. It's hard to dig up your harvest later. Celeste says she's used a tractor tire before.
Yeah, I've seen where people have taken tires and stacked them. And so as the plant is growing, they just keep stacking and adding more soil. And then when it's all said and done, they kick them over. And then you can easily get your potatoes.
Gigi, do you have any recommendations for after harvest for the home gardener to store their potatoes?
Well, that's what I was talking about in the towards the end, is that you want to make sure you're putting it in a cool, dry, dark location. So some place that doesn't have a lot of humidity to it, whether it's a utility room, if you've got a basement, you could put it down into. So you really want to grow what you can store. So think about that too, or what you're going to use. You don't want to grow too much that you don't have a use for the product. But remember, there's preserving them too. So you could talk to your FCS educator and figure out a safe canning method for your potatoes too.
Gina says her hard soils produced low yield. Any soil amendment suggestions to loosen it more quickly versus slowly over many years?
So there's different things like peat moss. Oh, I wish I could think of what the name of the soil amendment is. It looks like little itty bitty wood chips. But it's a soil amendment, and it helps to loosen your soil particles up. So I got some for our demonstration garden at the extension office a couple of years ago because it was hard as a rock. But it's very fine, almost wood chip like shavings that's used as a soil amendment. I mean, when I say tiny, I'm talking just little bitty shavings, quarter inch or so.
I would definitely
less.
Caution people about, a lot of people have probably heard that you could add sand to clay textured
that'll harden
soils.
it up.
It's almost like mixing concrete.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you need the addition of organic matter, something that's going to degrade over time. It's true that sand has the best infiltration rate, but when it binds to the other particles in the soil, you just wind up with an extremely hard to work with situation, probably worse than what you had in the beginning. So sand is not the fix in that case. Definitely want something with organic qualities to it, and then you can reevaluate year to year on how much you need to add as it degrades.
So you can, if you've got local horse farms or places like that where you can go out and get some organic matter from them that has been set in a pile and naturally decomposing for a period of time, do that. You don't want to necessarily put in anything that is fresh, because that will it's not as good, won't help break down. It's still going to take a long time to break down. So you want to get something that's already in the process of breaking down and has went through a so-called fermentation process. I like to say it's cooked a little, it's cooked its way through.
Yeah, you want some cooked manure.
Right? But you could add that in also, and that will help too. But you also want to pay attention that you don't put that in consistently and all the time. And you do a soil sample to check, because if you put in too much manure compost, you can raise your phosphorus levels too high, and that will cause problems with any of the vegetables that you're trying to grow.
Any additional questions for Gigi this morning? We're at 9:30 right now, and that's usually our stopping point. Gigi, thank you so much for joining us this morning to cover the potato topic. It's definitely timely. Tomorrow is the first day of spring. We've made it. Yay! Let's all rejoice together. I definitely have some plans to start doing some garden prep. I want to get some early things planted. I've started some things in the windowsill already, and just really looking forward to things greening up. As things green up, my mood goes up, and I think that's the case for many of us.
Oh, another container I just thought of. And we're doing this tomorrow. And the reason I think of that is I'm meeting with the master gardeners tomorrow, and we're working on our demonstration garden, because we are building a straw bale garden this year. One of my master gardeners does this at her house every year. You can
Cool.
plant potatoes in a straw bale, and they'll grow that way too. Another
I
type
have a
of
book about
container.
straw bale gardening at the extension office. If any of you Noble County natives would like to borrow that from me, I'd be happy to share. It's pretty cool. You do have to supply the nutrients to the plants since they're just there in the straw. But really cool. Don't use hay, use straw. The hay will sprout.
And clean. You need to make sure it's
Clean.
weed clean. You don't want
Right.
seeds in there.
But very, very interesting idea for those of us with challenging soil to work with. It's almost like having a raised bed, but you didn't have to haul the soil material in. Okay, well, thanks so much, Gigi. I hope that we've inspired some of you with ideas for the garden this coming year. And as always, please reach out if you have questions, comments. We're continuing to do our Farm Talk breakfast once a month into the future. Hopefully, we will be able to go back to an in-person format very soon. But until we're able to have breakfast together with each other again, we'll likely stay here on the Zoom platform. So our next Farm Talk breakfast is going to be on April 16th. The topic will be announced soon, and we hope to see you then. Thanks so much.
Thanks for tuning in for this week's episode of the Southern Ohio Farm Show. Be sure to tune in next week where we'll have more information about the practices that farmers in our area are using this spring and how they're using things like the tractor behind me to make their season go smoothly.